October 4th, 1789. A crowd of women demanding bread for their families gather other discontent French citizens, including some men, and march towards Versailles. This momentous event was known as the Women's March of Versailles, or October March. This event was one of the earliest and most significant events of the French Revolution. The march began among women in the marketplace of Paris, who were near rioting over the high price and scarcity of bread. The market women and their various allies grew into a mob of thousands. They marched to the Palace of Versailles. The crowd besieged the palace, and in a dramatic and violent confrontation, they successfully pressed their demands upon King Louis XVI.
But how did this influential march in France begin in the first place? Let's go back to 1774, Paris. Jacques Turgot, Louis XVI's Controller General of Finances, implemented the deregulation of the grain market, which liberalized grain commerce. This meant the grain prices increased, thus subsequently increasing the prices of bread. At the time, the poorest among the Third Estate were almost exclusively concerned with this issue of food. In fact, most workers spent nearly half their income on bread. Increased prices of this product led to the Flour Wars in 1775, in which commoners of the Third Estate had a small riot against the high prices of grain. At the time, the fear of famine became an ever-present dread for the lower section of the Third Estate, and rumors of a theory that foods, especially grains, were purposely withheld from them by the monarchy for the benefit of privileged interest groups was readily believed. The storming of Bastille and the Flour Wars, which happened before the Women's March on Versailles, began to inspire many French citizens. Flushed with newly discovered power, the common citizens of France, particularly in Paris, felt a newly discovered desire to participate in politics and government.
Numerous calls for mass demonstration at Versailles had already been made, so all the march needed was participation. On the morning of October 4th, a young woman struck a marching drum at the edge of a busy marketplace, thus signaling the beginning of the march. Their numbers continued to grow, and with restless energy, the group began to march. More women from other nearby marketplaces joined in, many bearing kitchen blades and other makeshift weapons. The goal of the march was to ensure that they got not just one meal, but the assurance of bread would once be plentiful and cheap. The March of Versailles lasted 6 hours.
Many spoke of executing Marie Antoinette and bringing Louis XVI home to Paris. Upon arriving at Versailles, the king met with 6 women representatives to discuss food shortages and demands. Although Louis promised to fix the problem, rioters were still wary of Marie Antoinette and her influence on the king. Worried she might change Louis's mind on the matter, some protesters managed to sneak into the palace to find the queen's bedchambers. As the guards frantically raced around to find the intruders, the mob surged into the palace in a wave of rage and violence. Royal guards were savagely beaten and murdered, and eventually Louis XVI gave in to the rioters' demands for the return to Paris and to fix their food shortage problems. On October 16th, the royal family, surrounded by a crowd of 60,000 French citizens, were escorted to Paris. This momentous event was one of the factors that kick-started the French Revolution and would change the history of France forever.